Alright. Welcome back to Mushoku Tensei, Jobless Reincarnation, anime review episode number 18. This one reviewing the 23rd, and for now, this is pretty much the final episode of season 1. Excuse me. Yep, it is. And this is called Wake Up and One Step Forward. This episode pretty much finishes up adapting chapter 13 of the 6th book, along with one of the short stories in the book. It is the interlude. The two she encountered. Yep. It also includes a little bit of an extra chapter from book 7. Yes, we actually have a little bit of stuff from book 7 here. Which, mostly put, you can see this episode potentially setting up a lot of stuff that could be explored for season 2. Yes, I'm so glad they included a lot of this stuff. And I think the people who made this episode really wanted to see season 2 because we plant a lot of seeds for potential for season 2. Now I focus on three or four different characters here. First, let's start with the start of the series, Rudius. He spends the whole episode soaking in his bed. We see on the floor, on the ground next to him, Eris's hair is still there. His wine glass, which he dropped last episode, is sitting on the edge of the table in his tent. His food is rotting because he's been there for a week. He has not eaten or drink anything in a week because he's still soaking over Eris leaving him. And we also apparently see flashbacks to his his previous life. Now, as far as I can tell, this is completely made up for the anime where they show this, where apparently he tries to stand up for a girl, then he gets beaten. He gets basically has a bunch of basketballs thrown at him for daring to stand up for a girl. And then you have him basically, after sulking for a while, not playing a video game, and then you see him get up, puts his cloak on, and he starts to search for his mother. And that's the end of that. Eris, meanwhile, they kind of included some of the stuff from her section from chapter 13. We see her and what is her name? I keep forgetting her name here. It's Gustine, yes. Where these two are basically slaying monsters, and of course she proclaiming in the middle of nowhere that she loves Rudius. And she thinks, oh yeah, she'll see him again, don't worry about that. Excuse me. And that's it for that. And of course she mentions that she needs to get stronger, take on that dragon god again. That's simply it for that one. There's a brief scene for Regard in this episode where he is finished killing some boars. These three merchants thank him, and of course tell him who he is. And apparently they're not scared of him because all the stories are not exactly true. Like they even once claimed that Super eats children. Yeah, that was a big fat lie. He set him straight, and that's that for that one. And then we have Roxy. Now, in the case of Roxy's portion, this section from the interlude, they kept a lot of this in, except they cut some stuff out, per se. I'll get to it. So, we get to them, basically, you see her, and she's drinking with Kaja, the great demon emperor, the one who's the form of a little girl. Where she's drinking like crazy, and then you have Rox getting completely drunk, and she wakes up in the morning, and apparently the bar has been completely destroyed. So, apparently apparently they cut the bit out where they said, oh yeah, we're out of, you finished our stock. It's like, oh, to another bar. Of course, apparently she blew up that bar in the middle of the night. And then, of course, she tried to get taken by the master of the place, the owner, and tried to sell her off in order to pay off basically. And of course, Rox gives whatever money she has to pay off the guy. And of course, the great team members is basically tied up. It just, you want a reward? Like, you think you can afford to pay me back? And like, I give you one demon. I was like, no, can you search these people? It's like, sure. And they cut the bit out here, and I thought it was really cool if they included this in, but they didn't. They kept this out, where she introduced herself as Roxy. He's like, do you know Rudy? Yes. Oh, you're the Roxy, basically, he talked about. They cut that bit out. I thought that was kind of weird. They cut that bit out. The other stuff, I didn't mind they cut that out, but that bit basically referencing the previous meeting, that would have been quite nice to keep here. I think cutting that was a mistake. Cutting the stuff about the pub being out of stock. That was fine cutting that. The other part, in my opinion, was not a good idea to cut. So she's able to find everybody. Now we do see that Lila and Alicia has reunited with Paul and Norn, which is quite nice. And this is a slightly different stance, basically, she does in the book, where in the book she basically standing up and just does, "Oh, I'll look up here," and then in the anime apparently she's basically bending down and looking between her legs when she's doing this. I thought this was kind of weird. And pretty much where she just now the only thing they kind of added here was still with Rudius. That actually was added in the anime because that was not included. Basically, her telling where Rudius is. They do mention the whole thing with Zenith, where she's in a labyrinth in the Beyond continent. See, that particular thing sets up book 12 because that happens in book 12 because of course that's where we find her. In the case of Eris, that kind of sets up her eventual return in book 16. That's when she finally returns to the book series. Excuse me. I'll get to more of that in just a minute. Basically, more so. And then, of course, Rox goes off. They cut a little bit of conversation out for her and Elise, who later on in the book it's revealed she's related to one of their characters. I will not spoil which one it is, but she's related to a character. So, and then of course she goes off and she goes to inform Paul, that's where it's implied that she's going to do that. In the book, she says she definitely was going to inform Paul where Zenith is. In the anime, she doesn't mention it at all, but you can tell she's probably going to tell Paul about where Zenith is. And then after the credits, we have a very interesting scene of a character who did appear in books 5 and 6, but did not make appearance in the anime. Yeah, for some reason, I think there was a brief appearance of this in the anime, in this particular cour, where they had Fitz and Ariel show up. Luke makes his anime debut in this episode. Yes, Luke is a distant cousin of Rudius because he's a Boris Garrett. Where pretty much the whole point of this scene is that's the events of books 8 and 9, where Fitz reveals that he knows Rudius, the fact that he's her mentor, her savior, and her friend, and someone she deeply respects. The whole point of that scene is set books 8 and 9. And from what I can tell from this particular scene, they include a little bit of the extra story, not the entire thing. It's not a full adaptation per se. It's a partial adaptation because they adapted pretty much toward the end. Because if you read the actual story itself, which comes in book 7, yes, book 7, the whole mention of Rudius has not happened until toward the end of book 7. Yes. Which seems quite odd, though, the fact they included that there. In the book, that was there, said the very next book of the series, which is book 8. Here in the anime, it seems like, though, you set up stuff basically to explore for season 2. You got a lot of setup for season 2. So, with this particular episode, we have set up for, in the case of Rudius, we have him going off, and him basically going off into the stuff that goes explored in book 7. Eris herself does not return to book 16, so not exactly a lot of setup for there. Basically, there's a setup for her potential return, but not for the later books. In the case of the Fitz portion, that sets up books 8 and 9. That's basically the first half of potential for season 2. And in the case of Ryjerd, as far as I can tell for him, there's no setup for him. It's just basically there just because that he's from the book. Now, as far as I can tell for his scene, that was complete anime original. I don't think it happened in the book per se. There's no mention of it at all. I'm sure it probably happened some point between pages, but yes. His scene does not set up anything per se. Does a potential return? It basically leaves open to return. It doesn't set up a return per se, but in the case of the books themselves, he does not actually return until book 11. Yes, it takes that long for him to actually return to the series. It takes him 5 books to return. Roxy herself, well, she doesn't return again for another 6 books, because she's absent for books 7 through 11. Yeah, the next 5 books she's completely absent for. There's some mentions of her, but there's no physical appearance by her in the books themselves. She has made an actual return to book 12 for the series, which that's a really good book, and it's basically a conclusion to a lot of the stuff that's been going on in the book series since book 2. Yep. Yeah. Overall, really good episode, and love all the setup basically we get a chance to see for season 2, which hopefully we get a chance to see season 2. The only thing that has been announced for Mushoku Tensei is just an OVA coming out in March. Yep, that'll be next time basically of reviewing anything for that. But I'll be doing one more video right after this one, discussing my final thoughts on the first season of the show. Yep, so yeah, that's the episode of you. Stay tuned for that final thoughts in the next anime review of the series. And then the very next one I'm going to do after that will be One Piece. And then Demon Slayer, then Boruto, and that'll be pretty much it for today. Okay, next video. Bye.